there, sweet friends. I hope you are all well. Welcome back, or welcome if you are new. We're going to be working on a personal project for me today, and I'm going to start my documenting October album. This is going to be the cover, some dashboard, a layout, and some inserts. Got a lot going on in this project, and so I'm also going to be sharing some rules for success so that I don't have to continue to call myself a daily dropout. I think my idea of success may be different from other people's, and so I've come up with some new rules and I'll share those with you. But I've got my cover here. We're going to work on that. My first dashboard with the date on it and some printables, a little bit of trim. I've got one cover here for an insert, and then our first layout inside. Plenty of room for all of the other layouts that I want to add to document October. So if that sounds good to you, then stick around and we will make it together. Before we get started on that project, let's just go over these new rules for success for a documenting seasonal project. This could be for Halloween as it is for October, could be for Christmas or any season that you want to document in. So this will help me to enjoy a more successful project. Number one, I am not following a daily schedule. And for some people, it does make sense to sit down and dedicate a little time and work at it very gradually, and so that they can have it finished in an allotted amount of time. For me, that's difficult to fit in. And so some days I won't make a layout, but the next day maybe I'll make 4, and just kind of following a better rhythm of when I feel like working. And I'm not obliging myself to create 31 layouts. And so even though it's for October, I'm just going to be done when it feels right, when I have all the stories documented that I want to tell. I'm not obliging myself to get this done before the end of October, obviously, because I did start late, and that's just how it works sometimes. And so I'm not going to handicap myself by rushing and making myself do more than I want to do. I'm not committing to taking a picture every day, and not every picture has to be Halloween themed. We're empty nesters. We do have a grandson that lives about 40 minutes away, but not every part of our October has to do with Halloween, but it's still worth documenting. It's still worth remembering and capturing in those pictures. And so not every picture has to be taken by me. Maybe they send me a picture of my grandson. Maybe we go to an event that has an ephemera piece or a souvenir, and I can use that as a focal image. And not every layout has to have a picture. Maybe we just want to make one for fun. And so that really kind of focuses on the enjoyment of being creative. I am not limiting myself to complete this project in just one book. And I did learn that really the first year, because if I have all the layering bits that I want, it does get bulky very quickly. And so I've decided that 2 books is the right amount, and I will distribute that between the 2. I am going to accept that I do not enjoy creative journaling. It's just not for me, but it is important for me to have the date on each story so that I can recall when and where it happened. I can add as many embellishments and trims as I like, understanding that it will create a wedge shape and get very bulky, and that's fine. This is my own personal project, and that doesn't bother me at all. I really enjoy adding those extra layers, and practicing them more is better policy for crafting. And I can scrap lift layouts from my previous years as long as it's my own work. And so sometimes I just change the pattern or the color palette or some of the embellishments, and I can get a similar but different look without having to redesign the wheel. Every layout doesn't have to be original, as long as it makes sense for the picture and as long as I am working from previous work that I have done. So with all that being said, if you want to screenshot this, maybe it will help you find a better level of success, then I encourage you to do that. It is definitely freeing not to feel compelled to live by someone else's rules for something that's creative and very personal. And so I think that if you just let that go a little bit and enjoy it for what you want it to be, then it will be a much more successful project. Now I feel like I've talked for an hour, but really we're just going to get started on this project now. And so I'm first going to start with these vinyl sleeves, and I will link these in the description, and I'll warn you that it is a bit of an investment. I understood that when I got them. I'm committing to using these for all of my own personal journals because I think it is a better way to store them and display them if they all match, and because I am now comfortable with the format of this size of page. And so I will link them in the description, and you can decide if it's worth the investment. And so now that I'm working from known measurements, this will be much easier to have these foundations done so that I can prepare to create those individual layouts. And so for the cover itself, I need my pattern paper to stretch the width so that I can tuck it inside here. And then I do want to round these corners because these are a little bit rounded as well, and that will help it to fit snugly and fill in all that space well. So the measurement for this is going to be 6 5/8 high by 10.5 wide. And we're going to slip it into here, and then we'll add some score lines. So I know I want these little ghosts to be on the outside, and so I'll slip it in one side. You do want it to be snug, but not so much that you cause damage to the paper while you're wrestling it in there. So now you've got this. Want to roll it so that you can put it underneath this side without damaging it. And that can be a challenge, but just be very careful. And start going back and forth. Put that in and then working it over. Now you see I have this, and this is going to be the outside, and then this will be the inside. I want to bring this to my scoreboard and score here where those plastic pieces end so that I can have a little bit better shape on the outside. So I'm just going to bring that to my scoreboard so that I have a full crease. I want to really go slow and make several passes so that I don't pierce through that paper, but I do want a really good crease on that. And so I will flip that over and just do that same process for this side as well. And then you see it did fold the plastic too, so you're going to get a good crisp line. Fold on that score, and then we'll be done with the scoreboard for the moment. So this may be difficult to see now because of the glare from the plastic, but I do want to come back in and punch a couple holes here with the small side of my crocodile so that I can string it, and want to use a sort of signature traveler notebook system to capture all of these individual booklets that it will take to make all these layouts. So I just want to kind of go in with my crocodile on that small end. So that plastic just punched through a little bit, and I was able to pick that off. Now you want to use a really nice sturdy elastic, and I just have this one. I wish I had the coordinating colors for all my project, but I just really don't want to invest that much for these kind of seasonal projects. So I'm just going to use white for this. So I want to do is start on the inside and then push that through, and then flip it over and come back through so that your loop is on the outside. So just pull enough so that you can get it worked down. Same steps up from the inside and then back in. This is really easy to do. Maybe you want to adjust this because you pulled too much elastic. Don't want to be wasteful. You do want to give yourself a good knot here that will hold all of these inserts inside. So just tie yourself a little knot here, and you're going to bury that within one of the signatures so it's not going to show. not so tight that it will buckle. You want it to have a good shape, but not come apart. So let's just clip some excess here. And then we can utilize this for adding our inserts. And I will show you. At this moment, it doesn't look like a lot, but once you start putting in all of your inserts, here's one that is just got a blank insert in it. You see how we put this into here. And then once you get into adding your layouts, this is the same size, but look how bulky that gets. And so if you want to make this many layouts with all the layering, you definitely are going to want to commit to 2 books. So this is just a lot of fun with different textures. On the edge, I put some trims here, and I have a sort of dashboard layout so that I can put the date on here. I'm just going to flip through a couple of pages here, but you see all of these different elements do get a little bit bulky once you start adding them. And I will share with you too that I am using the Canon selfie printer for all my pictures. And so that is definitely an investment worth it to me. Definitely going to work a lot with my scraps to get use out of them. That makes me happy to finally have a use for them. And so we're going to think about that dashboard. And so I have worked in a little bit of extra space in the middle here so that when it starts wrapping around, I have a little bit of extra room for the spine. So I have cut this to 6 5/8 by 10 7/8. I scored it at 4 7/8 and also 5 1/8. So that's going to give me a little bit of extra room. You want to come in with a corner rounder and clip these edges off. And I would have brought my envelope punch board down, but my bin for all my supplies is getting very heavy. So this is the one I'm going to bring down. So I want to finish the front of this for now. As I'm working along, I'll of course be adding additional details, but I did pick up some really cute paper from Amazon, and I was quite impressed with it. Sometimes that's a gamble, and occasionally you get paper that has an off-putting odor, but this one was perfect, and I really like the print quality. It is double-sided, but it's the same on either side, so I'm thinking of different ways that will be beneficial to my project, but I do want to just kind of combine an all-over holiday pattern with a geometric. I think that is the best way to keep things from looking too busy, but I will link this in the description if you're interested in this 6x6 paper collection. And I did go ahead and cut the corners on this so that I can have the pink as a border. And it just gives it a little bit of extra detail. And so of course, once you start adding all of these layers, you're going to create a nice, thick, sturdy cover. And I'm going to put this plaid bottom. I pulled a couple of journal cards from my stash, and I want to kind of create an area where I can put a printable so that it will kind of separate those layers and keep it from looking busy. So I just have these pink journal cards from a scrapbooking paper pad, and I want to combine them so that it will be tall enough for the printable that I want to use, and also some number stickers so that I can put the date on here. So I'm just joining these together. I know I need that much space, and I will be using just my double-sided adhesive for this. I'm going to center that as best I can. I just love pink candy corn print. That is so sweet. Now I did mention that I have a printable, and I have this just wide enough here so that I can cover the overlap. So this will look like one piece. Let's see, so I can get this sweet little go centered. And you can see how those journal cards really help to lift that printable off of the very busy pattern paper. Write a couple of options down for my number stickers. And I originally had hoped to use these glittery ones that are quite thick, but for whatever reason, there is only 1, 2. And so that is not going to work for this project. So I'm gonna work with these pink ones. These are actually from Tuesday morning. I don't know if any of there has any Tuesday mornings still open, but the one that we had sort of locally closed years ago, but I had these left over. And so I know that I want to do the 4 numbers, 20, 25, and see, I can tell that they will fit. It will also be a benefit to me to have the lines from that journal card so that I can keep everything straight and even across. So let's put this first 2 on, as we know that it's gonna anchor this set of numbers. We have an O here as well. I may go back and kind of tack those down a little better with some of my Tombow, just so that I am confident they will stay in place, but they feel okay at the moment. So 2025 is here, and you see how well that fits. That is absolutely perfect going across. And I love when things line up. So this is going to be one dashboard. And by that, I mean this is going to wrap around the signatures so that it will be easier to work the signature in and out to make it easier to work on. So you can see that we have the first bit done. Let's bring this to our cover, put it in, and it just slides right down in there. See, now center it, and that will be the first thing you see when you open it. We can add the signatures inside of this. So I am going to be using just regular printer paper for this because I want to reduce as much bulk as possible so that I can really add that in with my pattern paper and embellishment. So I am going to only use 5 sheets of paper for each of these, and I will cut them to be 9, and I will cut them to be 6 5/8 by 9 7/8, and then I will fold it in half. And I would do that for all of these pieces. And then I would sandwich them together and then staple them in this indentation where we have folded it. I have a long arm stapler, and that really is helpful to get into the middle of these inserts. If you don't have that, you could easily stitch this together with a little bit more twine. I think that would be absolutely perfect for this, but see, I have all of my pages here stapled together, and so that made it pretty fast. I did put a little bit of adhesive on here just so that it will be easier to finish these pages off. Before I do that, I did want to include a little bit of trim here, and I like the idea that it might stick out beyond the edge of the book just to add a little bit of texture and extra detail. So I have a double layer of some pom-pom trim here, and I want to add it just to the edge of this. And so I am placing a placemat from the Dollar Tree between these layers so that I don't accidentally glue things together that I don't want to. So let's just start here at the end get that hacked on. I did say this is a double layer. I just think it is a little bit nicer when it's more full. So I took two and pre-glued them so that it would be easier to keep them together. And I am stretching this just a bit as I work along and keeping the bottom layer along the edge so that it will stay even. Definitely want to be careful to keep those little pom-poms out of the glue because it is difficult to get off of them. Back in and just trim off the excess. Okay, so that is even more cute with that extra layer of detail. So in the years past, I have wrapped the signature around the outside, and I do find that that extra layer of thickness gets a little bulky, and so I'm just going to add a cover here on the front, and then we'll address the back when we get through this signature. So I have just gone ahead and pulled the double-sided adhesive off, and I'm going to line up this pattern here right along the side because we have rounded outside corners. And will be very easy to trim the excess. So I'm just going to come in, maybe not easy to see the contrast, but I will be able to cut it right along this edge. I do have a layering pattern here as well. Such a good way to go through your scraps, for sure. Just a couple of simple things for the front of this, because remember we put a lot of details into our dashboard. So let's just add a paper doily here and then top it with a tag from one of my collections. I can come back in later and trim the excess twine, but for now we're just gonna let that be. So let's work on our first two pages, and like I did for the cover of this, I do just want to add my adhesive to the book itself and then stick the paper to it so that I don't accidentally wind up with things where I don't want them. So I will also recommend not putting the paper all the way down into that crease, just so that it's a little bit easier to fold here and keep a shape. So I've got my first side here, super fun giant polka dot, and I'm gonna add this right before where that stapled crease is. Of course, I want to come back and trim. And I have a layering pattern here as well. Trim that right along the edge. I do like to treat these as two-page layouts, so I will continue those same patterns for this side. You see I'm leaving a little bit of space there so that everything will fold properly. I'll have to come back and trim. Okay, so now we've got our two-page layout sort of working underway, and I did pick a really fun cut apart for one of my collections. And so I did last week work through my collections and combine them, which was really hard to do, but I think I have a better overall idea of what I have to work with now. So I put like all the plaids together and all the oranges together and all the things with bats or spiders. And so now I can pull from those different categories and have a little more success at finding the combinations that I want. And so this one is going to have some stickers, and when I use those stickers, I do adhere them to paper and cut them back out so that when we start bulking up all of these layers, I'm not going to have different creases in the stickers because they're falling at different levels. And so I put that on paper, cut it back out, and then of course I have to add some double-sided adhesive so that I can stick it down. But I'm going to use a combination of some stickers from collections as well as these stars with glitter. It will put my stickers into kind of a cluster so that it will act as a larger embellishment here on the bottom. I do have another star to balance this side, as well as my number sticker for the layout. I'm going to put this down first. Make sure to get that straight. And then add my star over top. I do want to add a date for the picture that I'm going to include. And I'm just going to use my Dymo label maker. This is the old school one. And then I'll punch my date. This picture I'm going to work on was from August 16th. So that is not in October, but it does relate to the October story that I want to tell. So I do want to put that down here. Let's go ahead and clip a little bit of this off. It's too long. These tapes come in different colors so you can coordinate them with the project that you want to work on. Pulling the back off here and then clip it so that it doesn't hang off too far. And then add this to the cluster here on the bottom. So now when I look back, I'll see that the picture was taken on August 16th. And so here is the picture that I want to document. For this day, we picked a puzzle for our family hobby project, and we do this for different occasions, something that we work on together. I just wanted to show you the difference from printing if you have a selfie Canon printer from the app, which is this, or just from your gallery. And so it is a bigger picture. If that's what you're going for, you're not going to get those nice wide borders, but you could put those on easily with white paper. So depending on the size that you want to arrive at, it would make sense to do one or the other, but I think I'll stick with the app for this because I do like the border already added. Putting this down. Don't know if you can hear some sort of plane going out in the field behind our house. Maybe they're fertilizing or putting something sprayed on their field, but it's quite loud, usually bad timing for that. But so now I want to work on adding some detail for this. And I took the picture of the box with a lot of the tables showing, so we can go ahead and cover that up. The stickers here are beautiful florals, and I do want to include more of those glitter stars. So I'll just position these on this corner. For our puzzle, we do have the border done. This is a spider web bottle in this pumpkin and part of that one. So really not as far along as we hoped, but it is something we can do together. So that makes it fun. Maybe we'll do that tonight instead of watching the tigers. So now I can put another one here. I'm balancing, you see, from one side to the other with similar stickers. Then I also have just a couple of sentiment strips here. Kind of like to hang those over the edge. And that one can go there. Okay, so that's going to be our first layout. If you have any interest in seeing additional layouts, you can let me know in the comments. And I have in the past shared some, starts out with a lot of enthusiasm, but kind of doesn't maintain that. So I don't know if y'all are really interested in just making the journals or completing them with finishing details. So you can let me know in the comments if you do any kind of seasonal documenting, whether it's a daily or just a documented project. You can let me know that as well. So here is our first layout. And I'll put that into here. So now you can see we have our cover and our dashboard, this cover page, and I make this mostly for the purpose of wanting to maintain two-page layout. So kind of have to start with something on the cover so that you can see the other remaining pages as 2 pages. So that's going to be it. Remember to let me know if you are interested in more projects like this for the finishing details. Otherwise, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye.